on this computer. Okay. So, hey, last time we were here, I spent way too much time talking about importing stuff. Sorry about that. Wasn't very exciting, but it was kind of important. Hopefully some of you saw that. My plan for tonight is to open my slide deck. Onshape with your team. There. Oh, that's an old one. Hang on a sec. We're looking. Again, sorry, I'm coming in from another class and I didn't preset all this up. Is this? All right. This is not the one I intended to see. Hang on a sec. All right. We're going to make it work anyway. Okay. So I need to click on this and we're off and running. It is slideshow from the beginning over there. There we go. And I can share my screen over. Hey, where'd my share screen thing go? Here it goes. Sorry. There we go. All right. No, wait, that's the wrong slide deck. How to do that? Nope, sorry, that's the wrong slide deck. It didn't move over from my laptop. Oh, it's all good. It's all good. We're happy. Hang on one sec. Onshape with your team. I apparently overwrote that file with this file. Has this got what I want in it? All right, just give me a sec. Am I still sharing? No, yeah, I'm still sharing. You can see what I'm doing. I'm just whizzing through here real quick. This is what I thought I was going to show you today. And yeah, sure, why not? We'll go with it. All right. I ended up with back-to-back meetings today. So, if you'll remember last time we talked about doing setting up the directories. So we all had our files in Onshape with Kevin, and we talked about having a library file, the Onshape with Kevin library. So what I want to do today is talk a little bit about how your team, how you can use Onshape to break a robot design into parts so that it makes sense on working with your team. So I'm actually going to abandon this slide deck. Isn't going to get there. I apologize. My slide deck is not where it's supposed to be. It's on another computer that it doesn't look like it updated with the live sync and all the rest of that stuff. So I'm going to wing it, and that's okay. So
tonight on PowerPoint with Kevin, we're going to
tonight on PowerPoint with exactly right. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is how do you go about structuring a project so that it works well for working with a large team. And so the three things I wanted to talk about were how to do an entire robot design in a single file, which is an option, and is an option that's used a lot for my first tech challenge teams because there's usually one or two people that do the CAD. And part of that, we're going to talk about versioning. And versioning is a really cool thing that you need to know about Onshape, and how it works is super important, because the third option is to break a robotics project into several documents that are all linked together. And so there's a balance point there, and I'll show you why you would pick one over the other, and show you some ways that you can share information between those project files that will help your team do a bang up job. Okay, so I I think I showed you. So if I go into these are in Onshape with Kevin, robot in parts. Oh, wait a sec. Where is my? Oh, it got moved. All right, hang on a sec. I'll put it where it's supposed to be. There we go. All right. So in the robot in parts file, I just grabbed a design, an FTC design, and I end up using this particular robot as an example. It's got a lot of really kind of cool stuff in it, and some of the stuff we didn't do very well. So it's a nice little learning experience. So this is an FTC robot designed from a couple of years ago that that we originally did this whole thing in a single file. And so so the way we ended up structuring it is we have an assembly, which is the main robot here. And we were pretty careful to make sure that that we were able as a group to work on our sub-assemblies. So the robot is built up of the robot base. There's the robot base there, okay? And then in this game, we had a thing called a wobble arm, right? And so another student did that. Another student worked on the control assemblies. That's these guys, they're a control assembly and expansion assembly. And then somebody else worked on the ring elevator, which is this big part here, right? And you can see the way we broke it down is very common in FRC robots to break it into the base and the intake mechanism and the shooter, and right, and so that is a fairly common thing to do. All of this is in a single file. And why is that important? Well, it turns out that this single file, oh, it doesn't have all of its history in it. This single file, I'm going to take you to the original so you can see all of the history that's in there. I forgot, when you make a copy of a file, you lose the versioning history. So I'm going to go find this. I just want to show you what I'm talking about here. That was this year, Auto Prime. I think it's in here. Sorry, I just loaded the same robot, but I'll show you why in here in a sec. So Onshape has a thing called versioning. And what that means is that you can be working along and you can decide, hey, I really like where I am right now. I would like to make a version of this robot, and I will checkpoint the robot at this point and call that a version. And what that allows you to do is allows you to continue to work on stuff, but it also allows you to, if in case you totally screw up, which happens from time to time, the robot design over the course of a couple steps, you can actually undo back to a known good version. And if you look up here, this is where all the versioning stuff is. My mouse is in the upper left corner. And if I open this up, you can see that we had 32 versions of this robot. The kids were generally working on stuff, and then I did the versioning because they never remembered to. Well, there's a couple, Alyssa remembered to do it a few times, but I did most of the versioning at the end of the day because they kept forgetting. And what this does is Onshape actually tracks every change that you made. So if I went to here, you can see every change that was made to this robot on this day is saved. As in added a bolt, deleted a bolt, right? Each one of those steps is saved. And I can actually back up to any one of these steps and get back to where I previously was. Nice, cool thing to do. When you're working in a single file, you have the ability to do this versioning. And it's really pretty useful. The downside to this, though, is that if somebody breaks something, they'll probably start hitting the undo button, and they can actually undo what you did. So you need to be a little careful about keeping everything in a single file, even though it's super convenient. And if you're working on a design by yourself, it works out really well. But if you've got multiple people working in the file, say I'm working on the the wobble arm assembly and somebody else is in another directory, they can actually, unfortunately, undo some of the things that you did. Does that make sense? Everybody good with that? All right. So, so in a lot of ways, the versioning thing actually works out really well when you're doing it with yourself or one other person. If you have a ton of people working on different parts of the project, there's another way to do this. So let me just show you, excuse me, real quick, is I can click on let's say this. So here I did a edit on an in context part and did a fillet, and I could actually back all the way up to this, and I'm several versions back, and I can restore this and I can undo my project all the way back to this point. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to do that in actuality, but I could if I needed to, right? Because I can undo all of those changes. All right, so I'm now going to jump back to the one that's in Onshape with Kevin. Here you can see I did a couple of versions just to show you. I lost all the history versions when I copied this over. So you'll see that the changes are pretty minimal. But anyway, to create a version, if I've decided that, hey, I really like what I did to this robot. I'm sorry, I don't remember what I did, but I can come up here to this left-hand thing and I can do a create version. And this allows me to create a named version, version 3. And this is an awesome version of my file, right? And I can do a create version. And now a new version of this file. It basically has put a pin in that big long list of changes of, I really like this one. You can do other things. You can actually create, you can actually branch versions. I'm not going to go into that here because most of the times it's fairly confusing to do a branch. But there are people who do use this quite a bit, and there's good tutorials in the Learning Center if you think that you would like to do a branch. Why would you do a branch? You have competing ideas about this shooter thing down here, and you would like to be able to try two different things. So you might take a branch of the robot, go off and experiment with that, and then you can merge it back in later. It's a much more advanced topic. I'm not going to try and cover that on your first foray into Onshape, but that does exist, and you can learn about that in the Learning Center. All right. So again, this robot in robot in parts. I can see lots of people are kind of fishing around in here. You can find. We broke it down into the controls, the robot base, this wobble arm assembly. If I open this up, you can see it opened up a subdirectory or a folder. And so here is the actual wobble arm assembly that is actually incorporated into the main robot. And then it's got all of its parts in a part studio here. These are all the parts that got designed to put that together. And so we kind of organize the file that way, and it works pretty well, okay? This allows somebody to come in. I think at some point we ended up with a new version of the gripper mechanism, little gripper mechanism, whatever. And all of this is nicely organized, and people know where they should be working. How am I doing? Did that make sense? Hi, Naomi, how are you? Hey, everybody, that is Naomi Edwards. She is mentor of Kettle Falls FRC team, and she is our ringer. She actually works for PTC. She does Onshape education. And so she is lurking in the background, and she's going to tell me all the places that I get things wrong, I hope. Is that right?
You're doing great. It's great.
Ah, outstanding. So she's a great resource because she knows how, I know how to do some things that she didn't know how to do, but she knows a lot more about this than I do. So it's good to have you here. All right, so this is that one version, and this is a version that's in Onshape with Kevin Robot in Parts. Okay, so I'm going to back up one to Onshape with Kevin, and I'm going to do robot in sub-assemblies. And I've taken this exact same robot, and you can see that so I ended up with a main file that is our robot main file. It's right up here. And if I open this, it's going to look super familiar because I basically took this robot and broke it into sub files, right? And you can see that I've got the robot base still, and I've got the wobble arm assembly is still there, and the control hubs and the expansion hub and the shooter and the ring. So these are all the main parts, okay? But each one of these is now actually in its own document. And so if I go back up here, you can find the wobble arm assembly, the shooter assembly, the robot base assembly. And the one reason that you might want to do this is that, well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that each one of those assembly files has its own version history. And if you've got multiple people working, say, on the robot base and multiple people working on, say, the shooter assembly, this can actually be a slightly better way of organizing things because each one of those has its own version. And as you're working, sometimes you want to change the robot base, and you may be changing the dimensions. Maybe you're making the robot an inch wider, right? And it's going to take a little effort to get that done. And so you may need to work on that for several hours. If you're doing that in its own assembly and you have not created a version of it yet, other people can still work in the robot main directory with the prior version. So you can continue to work ahead, and they're using the prior version. And so, because inevitably, honestly, when you change something major in a robot base, you're going to break something. It happens all the time. And so, so when you're working in the robot main file, so here we go. I'm going to open up robot main file here. And I'm also going to open up, that's the robot main file. And I'm going to open up the, let's go with the robot base assembly. Okay. So here's our robot base as its own individual assembly and component. And you can see that I'm not going to do anything too major because I don't want to screw anything up, but I am going to put a 1032, I'm going to put a 1032 machine screw. I'm just going to put it right here in this hole. So there we go. So I just inserted a new part over there, okay? And you can see that. So there's this new bolt I just stuck in there. And so if I go back over to my main robot, you'll notice that that bolt, well, I guess it's going to end up underneath something, but that bolt, which is going to end up right here, doesn't exist in here. And I can actually go continue on and I can do something super duper crazy that, hey, if you've ever, this is one of the funnest things in the world about Onshape is you can actually select a whole part and hit insert and it will stick a bolt in every hole. Do you see that? So there we go. We got like massive Gatling gun cannon fodder right there, right? So all of those are now in this subassembly, but notice that nothing has happened over here yet. And that allows me to kind of work on my robot base independent of everybody else and get it all kind of shined up the way I like it. And then I can decide that, hey, I would super duper like to actually create a new version now because this is the best. I've got I've got like a 10 barrel bolt barrel thing. So I can create a new version. I can call this lots of bolts, right? And I can decide that there's my lots of bolts version of this thing. And now it's because I created that version that it's now going to be available to update over here. And you can see that, see this little blue thing? That's telling me that there's a newer version of that now available. So as I'm working in the main document, I can see as things start to pop up, and somebody's going to be responsible for the system integration, which is making sure that all of these parts fit together. And so if somebody on your team needs to take responsibility for the main robot assembly, usually there's only a couple of students working on that, but it's a nice way to sort of modify things. And I can decide that, hey, I guess I'm ready to start merging the changes in from these other folks. And so I can hit this, I can either click on this and update everything that has changed. Okay, I could do that. Or I can come in here and I can right click on just specific things. And where is it? Update link document. Is that right? Oh, no, wait, where's the version thing?
Yeah, you want to update the link document.
Yeah. Okay, that's it. So if I do this, it will pick that document, the robot base assembly, and I can do an update. And we should all of a sudden see a big mass of bolts showing up. There they are. So that allowed that version to show up. Okay. So again, by breaking the file up into sub-assemblies, you're able to do that. How am I doing? Is that making any sense? Who's got questions?
I think we have some people who need access to the document too.
Oh, I do.
Sounds like.
Oh, am I not looking at the chat window? All right. Hey, if you students who just joined our training sessions don't, oh, absolutely, there's a way to add them. Hey, everybody, watch this. We're going to have some fun. We're going to go and add, as an example, we're going to add, and I'm actually going to do this so that it shows up better on the video. I had to do this because over here on the far right, the Zoom videos show up. Is there any way to add them retroactively? Yes, there is. Give me one sec. I'll do this in a hidden window so you don't get to see my password. I was doing a presentation in front of about 300 people once, and I typed my password in clear text for. Luckily, nothing bad happened. They were all very nice, but that was kind of embarrassing. So I want to go to forums here just a sec. There it is. No, is that right? Oh, sometimes I so dislike Microsoft's thing. Hang on a sec. I got to do the phone verification. Oh, anyway, so back to the versioning thing. I will get everybody online here in just a sec. There's some things I have to fuss with in the background to make that happen. One of them is I have to type in the secret digit codes. There we go. Okay. Yep. All right. So there is my thing, and I want to collect responses by shortening the URL, copying it. Okay, so hey, if you're on a computer and you would like access to this, there's a little form I'd like you to fill out real quick. It's in the chat window. If you just fill that in, I'll end up adding you to our thing here in just a moment. So find it in the chat, update your stuff. Okay, so so far we've talked about versioning. Versioning allows you to checkpoint what you want. We talked about having all of your files in a single document, and that can be extremely useful. And there's a lot of really nice things because you don't have to worry about all this versioning stuff. You'll want to checkpoint and version every now and then. But if you are working with a team, there's a nice balance there of figuring out what things belong in sub-assemblies and what things belong in the main robot file. And that way all of your sub-assemblies can get versioned, and you can edit them independently and then just incorporate the main changes back into the body of things. Okay. And then the versioning history. And again, I just broke this file up. I don't even think I've made a version in here. Once you version a file like this one, this is going to be version 1, my main robot version 1. When you create that version, it's actually going to remember all of the subversions, so you can actually restore yourself back to subversions. So say a week later, we've marched down the field a little ways and we figure out we really screwed that up. It happens. You can actually restore to all of the previous versions. It's really handy. Again, not something I'm going to delve terribly deeply into. The key point I was trying to make is that as a team of people, as you're trying to figure out how to lay out your robot design, my recommendation is that you make sure and put that you break your project up into the standard robot base, the standard intake, the standard shooter, the standard climber thingy, right? These are all good big chunk pieces that you should be able to make independent of each other. Good? Hollister, am I boring you to death yet? You want to draw something, don't you? You're getting close. Okay, so, all right. Cool. So all of that was in this document thing. Here it is in sub-assemblies. Now, what if you have to share information between all of this stuff? It is still possible, by the way, even with a subversioned, or with multiple files like this, you can still do things in context if you need to. There are how many people managed to do the homework? Remember I sent out the lovely course that Naomi put together, which was the FRC robotics and CAD thing, or FRC robot. In the Learning Center, there was the CAD for FRC robots, and yes, and so hopefully some of you got to do that. Lily, Hollister, did you guys manage to find time to do that? You can be honest, yes, no. No? No? Okay, no worries. So we'll touch on that a little bit today, but you can do this in context thing to help you design some parts. And I'll show you how that works, just so you know what it is. And then I'm going to point you back at that lesson so that you can see how that works. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm doing a really quick diversion real quick. We're going to add, for those of you who are going to be your team's administrator. Whoop, I didn't mean to do all of that. So let's see, we got a bunch of people signed up tonight. There you all are. Again, if you need to add somebody to your team, you can go to your account, so there's my account in Teams, and I'm hopefully everybody here has an account on Onshape using the things you had, and we're going to do Onshape with Kevin here, and I'm going to add you all so you have access to this thing. Come on, wake up. There we go. And boom, you're all now members. Congratulations, welcome to the team. If I just did that and you go back to your home directory, you should end up with this Teams thing. It looks like a bear paw, actually, instead of a group of people. But I know that's supposed to be a group of people right there, and you should end up with an Onshape with Kevin Teams thing. If you didn't end up with that, let me know in the chat, and I will see if I can fix that for you. Oh, I think, Vaughn, I think I did get you, right? Yeah, I did get you. You were in the list. All right. Yep. Okay. So let's go we're going to go draw something. It looks like Tim Bennington Davis drew some stuff. I'm looking for my file. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I think I inserted a whole bunch of stuff in here last time, or you all inserted stuff in here, didn't you? And we were messing around with inserting these things. I'm going to go back and find my. I was going to go find my. Hang on a sec. I'm going to go back to. I think I must have left it in my Onshape directory, which was my version of CAD for robotics. Here it is. So when you go to do this CAD for robotics thing, you'll end up opening this this file. If you click through the links, it's very cool, and it has instructions on how to do things and like updating an existing robot. And what you end up doing is you actually end up creating a copy of this file for yourself. And the instructions, Naomi, the instructions weren't 100% clear on the making of the copy. I think I had a couple people email me and say it told me to do something that I didn't understand. So I'm not. I think
that's good feedback.
Yeah,
I'd love to fix that.
Yeah,
we can fix it.
We can fix that. Yeah. So and this isn't the file I intended to open. I intended to open the other one. Just a sec. Sorry. I wanted to open. Let's do this one. So if you open this guy, it talks about this thing called creating parts and sketching in context. Actually, a lot of you didn't do the other one, so actually I'm calling an audible here, and I'm just going to walk you through real quick this whole drivetrain thing. It turns out that of note to us, since we have our dear friends from Sonic Squirrels here, and basically your sister team built this thing. This is the 2910 Swerve base. And so it's very cool. There's a whole lesson on how to actually assemble this thing. And among the cool things that the instructions will tell you to do is to install this tool, what's it called? It's called MKCAD. Is that right, Naomi?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, MKCAD inserter. So if you're doing FRC stuff, there's a lot of cool parts that you can insert in here, a lot of common stuff. Like, for example, if you wanted the swerve drive specialties, they have all the swerve drives, and you can just insert them. So that's kind of cool. They insert a little funny, but that's okay. You'll figure it out. They come in as a configurable part, so you can figure out how to you can play around with this a little bit if you wanted to. You can do a below frame or above frame or no play. There's a bunch of different options there, and then when you insert something, it'll show up and you can go insert it. And so rather than having to go download and upload some of these components, you can do it that way. So the directions for that are actually in this module. And so they talk about, they do a really nice job figuring that out. Now, one of the things that here's the unclear part about this is copy the FRC drivetrain document. Well, it wasn't 100% apparent how to do that. And it turns out that what they really meant you to do was to make a copy of this document. This is the FRC drivetrain document.
Yep.
And,
yeah, that's good. I'll work on clarifying that up, and we'll put a new version.
Yeah. So so up here, they'll and it's probably hiding under. Well, I guess not. Is it right there? Is that the square I'm looking for?
Under the hamburger button up at the, I think, is that the common term that everybody uses? Hamburger up at the top left.
Yes.
Yeah, the 3 lines.
There it is.
And
Copy
then-
workspace.
Yeah, and so what I think happened is here, we put the wrong GIF in there and it looks like,
All right. So anyway, little fix there. But anyway, when you're starting on this, that's what they're actually asking you to do, is to make a copy of this workspace. And so that's what you're trying to do. I have gotten into a weird, there we go. So you'll end up doing the FRC swerve assembly, and that was really pretty straightforward. And then the next one to do is, you want to actually do both of these, even though we're all swerve aficionados. It turns out that the West Coast Drive assembly version of this, and I don't know, oh, I did this in a different account, this part of it. The West Coast version of this, which is this, has a lot of really cool stuff that you actually do want to do that is not done in the Swerve Drive version. And so there's a lot of, so this is a really good one for you guys to work through. So you end up inserting some parts and grouping parts. And so there's a lot of cool stuff in here. I'm not gonna, we don't have a ton of time. This takes longer than an hour, honestly, but it's a really good lesson for you guys to do. So to find this, go to the Learning Center, and you may have gotten this in the email, but you're wanting to go to the Learning Center, and you're going to look under self-paced courses, educator.
you'll want to go to the educator resources along the top there.
Oh, I missed it. Okay, let me come back. Onshape
Oh,
Learning
wait, you
Center.
did it.
Which ones? Oh, this. Oh, it's up here now. Ah, okay. They moved some stuff around since the first time I played with this, and it's in projects.
Curriculum.
Curriculum.
Yeah. Mhm.
There it is. Ah, this is the one that we're trying to play with. Oh, hey, that was a lot faster way to get there. Thank you, Naomi. So yeah, here it is, and you can see I actually did all three of these. Well, at least I got two completed. I must not have finished this one. Great units. Go do this. You will learn a lot. They did a much better job of stepping you through this than I could. So, okay, right? But having said that, let's go. We're going to go and we're going to go to. We're going to go to. I opened a bunch of windows I didn't intend to open. I'm going to close them. There we go. If we go to our Onshape with Kevin, okay, and open up your. Let's open up your file. If you don't have a file here, because some of you are new, just create a. I'll show you how to do that. If in your Onshape with Kevin or in your root directory, it really doesn't have to be in here. You're going to do a create document, and you can just give it your name. Okay, and that will open you up a document, or you can open up your existing one. That's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to get you to install this MK CAD deriver. I'd never really thought about how to spell the word deriver, D-E-R-I-V-E-R. Very cool. So if you don't have that, go up here to search tools and type in MK, wait, is that where I want it?
Go up to the App Store button,
App Store.
which is, yeah, it's like, yeah, right there.
MK deriver. Oh, not there?
Just try MK CAD is usually the, it's
Oh,
funny
there it
because their tooltip doesn't actually match the name of the app, which is, yeah, bummer.
All good. So let's run that through that one more time. Everybody should do this. Just go do this right now. Go to the App Store, type in MKCAD up here, and then I believe there's an install button, but I've already installed it, so it doesn't show up for me. Is that right? Click on it. And yeah, if you click on it, there should be an install right here.
Now, if any of the students are in like an enterprise and they are, hopefully they're working off of their own account right now, but
Yeah.
which they should be since they're in your document. But if they're like in an enterprise with a school district,
Yeah.
they may have to have like the admin enable the app for them. So
I
just
think,
a heads up for that.
I think everybody here is signed up for student accounts. Lily, did that make sense to you? Were you able to do this? Give me a thumbs up if you're okay. You find it in the App Store? All right. Bobbert, how about you? Did you find it? All right. Steve, you found it? Everybody's good? All right. Because we're going to use it right now. Because we're going to go back and I'm going to start a new assembly. And I am going to use the MKCAD thing. Very cool. And I was going to look for, well, we could get a kit of parts chassis. Here it is. And you can tell it what dimensions you want. Pretty easy. Let's go with, oh, hey, 32 by 27 is awesome. Let's put on Falcon motors because, hey, why not? Everybody likes to spend a lot of money. Or you could do Neos, up to you. I want wheels, so I'm going to turn off no wheels, I think, and it'll come with a battery mount. And I can insert this. And really, I'm just giving myself something to draw upon. That's our goal. But did you see how to do that? So use this MKCAD thing, kit of parts chassis. You can do it configurable. I wanted to put wheels on mine. So good. Anybody have trouble doing that? Make it go. All right. So, hey, well, that's pretty cool. We're going to throw on another part here real quick. We're going to go and we're going to find a common off-the-shelf mechanism, and we're going to do a, that's not where I found it. Let me see. Here we go, electronics. So I want to put a, well, I can search for it. I was going to put on a Robo Rio. There it is. So you can search for Robo Rio, and there it is. And that will insert a Robo Rio in here somewhere. I think. There it is. It's hiding down there. So I was thinking, hey, just for giggles, I'd kind of like to figure out how I can mount the Robo Rio. And we're going to put it in a stupid place. We're going to put it right in the front, but that's not really the goal of this. I'd like to put the Robo Rio right up here in front. And yeah, so I could just fasten it to the plate here, but my holes aren't, I don't have holes. They won't line up. So what we're going to do is we're going to build ourselves a bracket that is going to attach to this thing and attach to the back of the Robo Rio. And we're going to do this in context. And I'm going to step you through this. My goal is not to teach you everything there is to do about in context. My goal is to show you what in context does, and so that you know how somebody would go around designing parts, because there's the ability to import all these parts, but you almost always need glue to get things to fit together, right? Little brackets, stuff you're going to 3D print. And I just want to show you what the in context thing does for you to enable you to do that. Okay, so I'm going to create, I would like to create a part that exists on this plane up here in order to mount my Robo Rio. So I really like it to be right here. And so one of the things that you can do, which I find very, very convenient, is to pick a spot. I like that hole right there. And you can actually put what's called a mate connector there. And that's this thing up here. So there's insert and there's mate connector. And I'm going to insert a mate connector. And I'm going to, I guess I'll put it on that hole right there. That's where I must have intended to do it. And so I've selected that center of that thing, and I'm going to name this. I can change the name. I can call it the Robo Rio mount context. Okay. And what that'll allow me to do is that it's going to allow me to create a part with that spot being the origin of the part. And if you do that, it will allow you to use an origin that has planes and stuff that are nicely defined for where I want to do things. And here's what, let me show you what that means. I'm going to click on that robo thing and I'm going to come up here and see where it says create Part Studio in context. It's right up there, right up here on the next to search tools. I'm going to do that. And I've given it that as the origin. And when I hit OK, what it's going to do, it's going to bring in, it's going to bring the base in as a context. And it's not really there, believe it or not. It is, but it really isn't. I can't mate to it. I can't do anything to it, but I can draw on it and I can use all of the points out here as reference points for my drawing. And so that's really handy. And you'll notice that even this thing is out there. Well, that's kind of cool. I guess what I wanted to start with is a bracket that's going to hold the Robo Rio, right? Okay, fair enough. So I'm going to draw a part on here. So I'm going to do a sketch. So sketches are where you draw geometries and stuff. And I can draw a sketch on the top plane. And since I used that context mate connector, my top plane is related to the origin. Okay. And you'll notice that right through the origin, I got the front plane, and the right plane is also going through the origin. So it gives me some nice predefined geometries to work with. So we're not going to do anything too fancy. I'm going to draw just a rectangle. And I'm going to look at this from the top. Now that, because I wasn't thinking ahead, I left the Robo Rio sort of hanging in my way. I can go fix that, but I'm not going to right now. But I can project, I can turn on the projection. This project command will allow me to bring some lines up from the other model. Okay, so those are now in my sketch, and I can actually draw a center point rectangle from here. And you can see that it's based on the origin. If I hit this, I'm up here in the top right-hand corner. If the videos are in the way, top right-hand corner's got this cube, and if I click on that cube, it will orient things to certain planes. And here, I'm just going to draw this out a little ways. It looks like that's probably big enough. There we go. And you can see that it's asking me for a dimension down here. I'm going to tell it 1 inch. Whoop, it didn't like that. All right, that's okay. It's all good. It lined up on something else. It lined up on the center of this thing. That's fine. But I may want to define the dimension between these two lines, and let's make the part 6 inches long. Why not? Okay, there we go. So I've got that, and I'd like to project a couple of holes too. So I'm going to use, I want to use this hole and this hole. Those would be my two mounting holes. And I'm done. So far I've used one dimension, 6 inches. Not too bad. It's centered on that hole, so that's not too bad. And I should be able to now extrude this thing and extrude that little fellow. I don't need it to be that thick. Let's go with an 1/8 of an inch thick. There it is. And so there is the start of a part that I'm going to 3D print, right? This is a bracket for this Robo Rio. All right. And it's got a couple of mounting holes, and they line up with the frame. Notice I didn't have to dimension those holes, nor did I have to tell them. I projected them, so they're kind of fixed in space. If the model underneath changes, since I did use the 1 6-inch dimension, that's okay. But the rest of it is all referencing the context of this part. Does that make sense? How am I doing? Make sense? All right. And now I need, well, turns out I can cheat and I can grab some measurements. I need to know what the distance is from here down to here. And so I've clicked on the top line and the bottom line, and down here it's telling me that it's about 5.6 inches is how tall that thing is. So I need 6 inches going up this way to mount my part. So I'm going to now draw another sketch on top of this guy. Okay, and I'm going to draw a corner rectangle, and I'm going to go from that point down to here somewhere. And I only need, this is going to be a very flimsy mount, but I'm just going to make it 1/8 of an inch. There we go. And then I'm going to extrude this guy up, and I want it to go up 6 inches. Okay. There we go. All right. Well, so that looks pretty good so far. And we'll stop there for a sec, because I'm going to show you how to go back and forth editing this part. So what I can do is I can actually now take this and hit this button up here, insert. Oh, no, actually, I can't do that yet. Most important thing when you're making a part are these next 3 steps. They are the most important things you can do when you make a part. You ready? Over here, down here is the parts that have been made so far. I've made one part. It's called part 1. Stupid name. You need to change that. We're going to change that right now. We're going to call this the Robo Rio mount. Okay. Now it has an appropriate name. Okay. And that's really important, because a lot of people don't do that. And when you look in their, when you look at their robot assembly, they have like 90 things called part 1. And it's really irritating because you can't figure out what the hell anything is. So name your part. I just made the part. We just did that. The next thing you really, really, really want to do right now is you're going to assign a material to it. Now, a lot of us would use like 6061 aluminum possibility. I'm going to 3D print this one using nylon. And so, nylon. Okay. What does this do for me? Well, I just assigned a material to it, to part 1. Okay. And it now, it can now determine what the weight of that is. Okay, hang on a sec. I gotta, and I'm going to edit the appearance. Turns out that my material is this blackish color down here, and I don't know where my part went.
I think it's hidden right now.
Did I hide it?
Yeah. I think you might accidentally click the little eyeball next to the Robo
Oh, I
Rio
did.
part.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, okay. Whew. I was feeling bad about myself. I was going, oh crap. Okay. So now and this is super important, folks, when you're building parts like this. If you want your CAD to be accurate and you want to be able to find the center of gravity of your robot, yes, you want to do that, especially if you're hanging. If you go through and do this as you're building parts, or even as you're importing parts, assign the material and give it a proper appearance. Every time you make a part, do these 3 steps. Rename it to something legitimate, assign the material, and assign the material and edit its appearance so that it looks like it's supposed to, especially if you're making libraries. Okay. So there we go. I'm going to now insert this and go to my assembly. It's when I click that, it's asking me what thing I only have the one part to insert. And there you go. Now I've got this part here. Isn't that cool? And well, it's not actually, it's just sitting there. I can move it, right? So, so what does that mean? So that means I'd really like to attach this thing. So I'm going to lift up on this thing. Let me make sure I keep my holes straight. Just a sec. I'm going to lift straight up on this guy, and I'm going to do what's called a fastened mate. So these are the mates up here, and you'll learn about this as you start assembling things and going through the tutorials. But one of them, fastened mate's kind of a cool one because it just sort of works. Come down here, going to pick that. See this that little puck thing there? That is a little origin point, and it has axes on it, and it's hard to see sometimes in Zoom. There's a blue axis sticking up, and there's a red axes sort of headed out this way, and that actually is the, I believe that is the x-axis, and then there's a y-axis going this way, okay? So there, it made this little extra little origin point, and what it's going to do is it's when I do a fastened mate, it's going to come up here and it's going to take the next little mate connector I've got there, and if I click on it, it is going to mate those 2 points together. Those 2 points will pop together along the z-axis, so their z-axes will align. And you know, if you get here and you realize, oh well, sometimes you do this and the part ends up like this, and you're going, what the hell? It's like upside down. That isn't what you wanted to have happen. Yeah, it's okay. You could try flipping it. Oh, actually, I'm flipping the. I'm flipping the main assembly in order for that to work. But anyway, and there are some other things you can do. You'll learn about these mates a lot. Okay, so now that is now fastened to the robot base, right? Usually, and I did not do this, usually you want to take one of the parts, usually the main thing that makes sense to you. I would say it's probably this base, and I'd like to click on it, and I'd like to right click it, and there's a couple of things I could be doing here. I'm going to take one of these parts, this one here, and I'm going to fix it just for now. That's kind of a cheating way of doing it, but what that means is that this part no longer is movable, and now everything else can be moved in relation to it, and you don't move the main part. At some point, we'll talk about better ways of doing that. Okay. Hey, I want to put this thing on the Robo Rio, but I didn't put holes in it. Well, that's kind of rough. But I'd kind of like to get it aligned first. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a fastened mate on this thing, and I'm going to fasten it to this thing. Okay, so that made a little bit of sense. So it's kind of where that's kind of where I want it to be, isn't it? Look at that. So and the nice thing about Onshape as opposed to the other programs is Onshape is really good about giving you a totally legit thing, like the center of mass of your, or the center of the geometry of your part. And so that's what it did. It picked the center geometry of this part, center geometry of this part, and they're now fastened. Awesome. So now what I want to do is I actually like to put screws in this thing. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, I need to edit this part. I need to edit this part, but I'd really like to get the holes transferred over from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click this guy. I'm going to edit in context, because remember we created a context for it. And context 1 is what it's called. That's sort of its default name. So there it is. But notice that this thing is no longer where I wanted it to be because I moved it. And so one of the things that you do a lot of is you go, oh, okay, well, what do I do about that? And if I come over here to this context thing, I can click on the 3 dots and I can tell it to update its context. And when it does that, hey, what did it do? It successfully updated the context, and now it moved, right? So the context is now, it has moved and it's now useful. So now I can come over here, I can do a new sketch on the back side of this guy, and I can project, well, this guy's in the way, for crying out loud. I could right click it and probably hide it maybe. What do I want to do? Oh, well, yeah, I think that's what I'm.
There's a quick shortcut key. If your mouse is over it and you hit Y, it'll hide whatever your mouse is on in the.
Oh, I like that.
I'm one of my favorites.
Oh, I see. I just sort of learned something new. So why got us to do that? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go find the screw holes. I believe these are the mounting holes, and those are the case. That's got a screw in it already. You can see it's got a Torx bit. But I believe these are the mounting holes. So we're going to grab the center of that mounting hole and see how that showed up. And I can just go find the center of all of these circles there. Well, that isn't what I wanted, so I'm going to undo that one. Hang on a sec. I want the center of that circle. And wait, I'm going to undo that one more time. Okay, hang on a sec. I got to go do that again. Here we go. I screwed that up. So I want the center of that circle. And I want the center of that circle. And I want to project. Oh, well, I'm not projecting at the moment, but that's okay. For some reason, it's not letting me pick the circle. All right. We'll get the center of that circle. And we'll get the center of this circle. Those will be close enough. And I need to project all those. There they go. So now I've got the screw holes, or the centers of the screw holes, and I'm going to go up here. And I believe these to be, I think we need 0.125 holes. They're 3mm screws. And so we'll just do that real quick. I'm going to draw another circle here. There it is. Making this up as I go, but 0.125. All right, so now I've got, you get the idea. I can project all those holes. And there are other cool things you can do with these constraints. I could have made all of these holes equal in size. All right, so there we go. There they are. Now I can unhide my part. And you can see I now have these lovely holes up here, these 0.125 holes, and I can now extrude. Whoop, that's sketch. That's extrude, remove, and I want to remove that hole. And I want to remove that there. Oh, I need all of it. There we go. I'm not doing a bang up job of this, by the way, team. I didn't align those very well, but you can see the idea. So we've just made this mount. We just designed a mount, and you do this all the time when you're doing CAD. Is I just made this mount plate based on geometries of other parts. You'll notice aside from the hole dimension, I typed in 0.125. I had to put no dimensions at all on any of this. And so now I can go to my assembly, and sure enough, there they are. And I can now insert standard contents, and I guess they're going to be probably, we'll go with 632s. I don't know what the actual size is. And they're going to be kind of short. They'll be 1/4 inch long. And I can click on these holes up here. This is the best thing ever, by the way, right here is clicking on these holes like that. Boom, there are the screws. Nice. And then, of course, I need 1032 screws that are about 1/2 inch long. And those will go here and here. Okay. If I teach you nothing else, the entire reason for doing CAD is to put the screws in things. Should be on your t-shirt, okay? So there you go. So we just, so this is what this in context thing does. And so you're going to see references to it when you're going through the tutorials. But if you're ever wondering, how do I mate? How do I get a connection between a thing and another thing when there's no gluey parts in between? How am I going to design that thing? You can use this in context thing to design these parts. That make sense? Lily, are you good? Hollister, did that make sense? How to actually do this and go through the individual things, the learning centers where to go find that. There's actually a lesson very similar to this where you make a mount for a color sensor in the curriculum, and it works out really good. It's a really great lesson. All right, I ran 4 minutes over. I apologize to my dear friends. Okay, useful, not useful?
Very useful.
Yeah.
Okay. Do y'all want to try taking a whack at that curriculum?
Yeah.
And if you have any problems with it, oh wait, well, the author, well, at least on my screen, and on my screen, Naomi's right here. Bobert is in Alice position. If you've ever watched the Brady Bunch, Alice position is the center. Bobert. Okay. Questions?
I've got so this is backing up. Your importing of the MKCAD was brilliant, but that went by too fast.
Okay.
Um,
Let's do it
so-
again. You ready?
So I think so. I went and got it, but now it doesn't, I don't know where to make it show up in an insert.
Sounds great. So insert uses documents, other documents, okay?
Yep.
Or your current document, handy place to find things, other documents. So those are other documents that are sort of in the file system of Onshape. And it also has a tab for standard content, that's special, okay?
Right.
So inserting is usually done out of other documents. The other way to do it is called features. There are other ways, and so the apps that you're adding are actually over here on the right-hand side, and I'm going to move this over so that the Zoom video doesn't get in the way. And along this edge over here,
Oh.
you should have an MK.
Oh, okay. That's what I missed. I kept looking in insert.
Got it. Okay.
I see your point.
Yeah. And so if you click on
Oh,
this,
yeah.
and it's got quite a bit of good stuff on it. I grumble a little bit. It doesn't have enough stuff in it for me. It's all good, but it's got a lot of good stuff in it. It turns out I can lobby Andy Mark to put a whole much more stuff in here because I'm part owner. I just have to find somebody at Andy Mark that has time to do that, or it's going to be me, one of the two. So anyway,
I see things like RoboRio and simplified RoboRio. The one it doesn't have is RoboRio with clearance for all of the wires that are coming off of it.
Wires.
You need a RoboRio with a larger box around it, and especially a power distribution panel with a larger box around it that reserves clearance for all those heavy wires.
I'm with you. Having said that, wow, talk about a number of variables. You need to work on that.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for pointing that out. I wasn't looking to the right at all.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And there are other things that there are other little apps. I'm trying to remember this account. I'm sorry, I have several accounts and this account doesn't have them all. I tried to use OpenBOM once. They wanted money. It looks like it could be useful, but I saw OpenBOM and I thought, oh, cool. Yeah, it's not open source. It's okay. They're a legit software company. They're doing good things. They're making tools and stuff. But you can find quite a few other interesting things up here in the app stores. There's a rendering module, and I believe, I don't know if it's still free. No. Yeah. So one of them is super expensive, and the other one has a free 30-day trial and $9 a month. And I think actually one of my kids decided it was worth paying for. Let's see. There are some utilities. So there are a few free things in here as you go through, and I think a lot of them are in sort of the utilities department. So yeah, worth looking. You poke around in here. There are some other cool things. You can actually have a trace parts part community, and then there's yeah. So there are databases of manufacturer modules. These are really similar to the content that's on the websites. They can be useful. They can also be super confusing because sometimes finding the part that you want, sometimes the search doesn't work as well as you would have expected. I installed a bazillion things in one of our student accounts trying to find good things to install. And I think trace parts, I think, was the one I liked the best. MKCAD is here as well. But trace parts wasn't too bad. You could find models for things. I think I pointed out last time that you can always search the public files in Onshape, and you just have to be careful about what thing you decide to actually import. Let me just show you that real quick. Because I have a tip for you. If you want to go to the public, and let's go with a Go Build a 5200, right? So there's a bunch of motors. Well, Go Build it. All right, let's just go build a. Here we go. So you can find what look like a bazillion versions of the same servo that somebody downloaded, right? And you would think that, oh, they must all be the same. Well, I guess Vincent did all of those. Some of these are not good. And when you download them, you go, oh man. Well, what I watch for ones that have lots of links to them or have had a lot of copies made. And that I use that kind of as a discriminator of, oh, well, a couple hundred people have linked to this one. Like here's this one, this parts library. Nick apparently has done some work on it, and 421 people linked to it. It must not be all that bad, right? Right. So anyway, that's one of the things is if you're looking up for things in the public directories, keep an eye on the links and the likes. The like thing is not overly used in Onshape so far. They went for a little social thing on it, but not a whole lot of people ever like anything. I've liked several things, but anyway, that's sort of a good thing to look for. You can, if you look for like a Falcon motor, you'll find a bazillion. Falcon 500 is actually what we're looking for. If you use more than one search term, it sometimes doesn't find stuff all that well. It's kind of hit and miss. It's like bad Google. Right. But again, I end up searching down here, and I tend to lean towards the ones that have lots of links or lots of copies made of them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Some of the things that you download out of the public thing are they look really good, but they're kind of broken. So it's all good. All right. So next time, so we just made that part, and we may I really would like to encourage everybody to try and do that curriculum that is established, because they do a really good job of it. There are other things that you can do in the Learning Center that are really super worthwhile around assemblies and working with parts. And if you want to find something, of course, now that I'm in demo mode, we're having a bit of a lag, but come on, open up for me, please. You can search for specific commands, you can search for topics, and that usually does a pretty good job at suggesting stuff. And that's how I learned a lot of stuff. That's how I've learned a lot of stuff about contexts, a lot of stuff about document management. There it goes. Come on, Onshape, you can do it. There it goes. Okay. Come on, baby. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to show you before I go is, while it's doing that, a lot of times when you're doing something, the online tools don't do this quite as nicely, but say I was going to say I wanted to do I'm going to do a fasten beat, right? And one of the more underlooked sources of really good information is that little question mark, right? You're going, oh, all right. It doesn't seem very good, but if you click on it, it will bring up directions and some examples of what all of the options are in that dialog box. And you can find some pretty good tips in these things. So, and so I've been using those actually quite a bit, especially when it came to this little guy, the pin slot mate. I had problems getting it to work. Honestly, it wasn't 100% obvious. And so I found that this actually had some pretty good info on things. Some of them have little video examples, and it turns out you have to pick the pin first and then the slot second. I didn't know that. The other programs, it doesn't matter. I could not for the life of me get pin slots to work until I read this thing, and the best place to find it was hitting that little thing. And then this also, a lot of times I'll just open a dialog and get that, because now I can actually look at and browse their help files. These are relatively up to date. They seem to be doing a pretty good job of trying to keep them up to date. Every now and then they will have added a new feature and or a new menu item to these, and it takes a little while for them to update these help files. But the super nice way to find help on things that you're trying to do. And then I think I said this last time I taught the class. The reality is, this stuff is cool. The farther you go out to the right on these menus, the cooler stuff gets. So like the really cool stuff, gear relations and rack and pinions and screw relations and all. There's a whole. So it just seems like they started out with the very, very basic stuff is sort of on the left, because that's how they started. And as they added the coolest features, they always seem to be farther out to the right, but they're also a little more advanced. So there you go. Make sense? All right, I ran us 15 minutes over time. Sorry about that.
Oh, good.
Next week I will be in Arizona. I'm 90% certain I will be online at 7. If I'm not here at 7:05, that means I lost the argument with my wife, because I'm supposed to be on vacation. But we're usually not doing anything. The sun's already gone down, and it's all good. So I should be here next week, and yeah, please try and do the lessons if you can, and then we'll take off from there. One of the other things, next week I also intend to spend a little bit of time talking about tricks for those of you who wish to be the librarian for your team, about how to move things, and specifically how to set up libraries that don't show you all of the garbage that you could potentially insert. There's some tricks that you can do with folders and with moving sub-assemblies around, where you can take the source material for a complicated part and hide it somewhere else, so that you only get an assembly to insert, rather than getting a bearing assembly, for example, rather than getting 2 bearing races and 8 balls to insert. Right? You can hide that as being the librarian. You can hide that from others if you think about how to structure your files a little bit. So either that, or Naomi's going to tell me, why are you doing it that way? Why don't you just click this? I'm hoping she says that.
I'm sure it'll be great. I love coming in, because I love hearing how people are using it too, because a lot of times it's not wrong. Everybody has a unique way of handling it. And yeah, it's great. It's really good to hear. Yeah. And I'm trying, and like I was telling these folks, my team's library files have turned to a big pile of smelly poop. Because people have imported, people have imported parts, and some of them came in as composites and some didn't, and sometimes you insert something and it's got topology errors and they don't know how to fix those. And I'm debating whether to do this with the entire group, or just tell people, hey, next time we'll stay a half hour after for those who want to be librarians, and we'll talk about what to do about fixing things when they don't work right. For example, if you were to download the Swerve Drive module off of the Swerve Drive Specialties website, it turns out that there's a topology error in a couple of places, and it's not, when you insert it, you end up with the red, you end up with this red thing of doom right there, right? All of these have topology errors, and that's where these are coming from. And it turns out it's this,
this bevel gear right here. And if I think I can drag this out. Yeah, I should be able to drag that out. Okay, come out here. If I look at this,
insert these recently?
I downloaded this from their website about a week ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So not from MKCAD?
Not from MKCAD. Somebody else went through and fixed it, right? But, you know, so
Okay.
manufacturers, they try and do their best, but some of them screw up. And so this one, you can see the tooth is malformed for whatever reason. Yeah, come on, there we go. So this is not like the others. And then there's some other problem in here. And so there are tricks that you can do to fix that.
That's a gear that's been through a competition.
It is a competition gear. Yes, indeed. Somebody drilled aluminum and left it in there, so it wore the tooth down. And I think if I go down here farther, there's some screws and some other things that didn't quite work as imported from. And how do you fix those? And so that's sort of a librarian's function. You don't really need your entire team to figure out how to do this, but sometimes you download a part and you're really disappointed that you can't actually use it. But there are some strategies on how to go in and fix this. Like, for example, it turns out I can download this bevel gear from Patrick's website and replace this with the correct gear, and hey, it worked, right? Or I can come in and patch the topology, which is a little bit more of an involved thing. You have to drag this into a part studio and do some magic to it. I don't think we'll get into it that far. That gets pretty advanced. But and then there are other things, like, for example, if you insert I'm going to grab this out of a different library. I'm going to go to go build a parts, maybe. No, hang on a sec. Where's my library? There it is. Say you downloaded a complicated part, like a slides especially. I'm talking and thinking at the same time. I apologize. So like a 4-stage Viper slide, right? I think I just inserted it. There it is. Is that it? Wait, where'd it go? Oh, it didn't come up. There we go. 4-stage Viper slide. The model that you download from our dear friends at GoBuilda has all the parts in it, but when it comes in as a step file, none of the parts are assembled. So you have this loose bunch of crap, and which is fine if you want to put that on your robot, but let's face it, we all want to take this thing and make it slide up, right? And in fact, actually, if I fix this part, so what I did is I'll show you how you can go about making this work without having to figure out every little. I did not go through and do all of the connections, right? All of the mating on this, but I did mate. I did group and mate, which means which means taking a bunch of things and saying, you all of you parts, you stay in relation to each other, don't move, right? And then so I decomposed what they did, made some very nice groups, and then had to just mate a few of them of those. So I'll go through how to do that sort of stuff. And again, that's really sort of for those who would like to be team librarians and would like to make sure that things are usable for others. Yeah, and it was interesting because you have to pull all sorts of tricks. Like this is actually a slider mate, but in order to get all the geometry to work, there's a whole bunch of offsets that had to be calculated, because this is actually mated to this point right up here with some offsets. It was really trick on how to get it to work, but it didn't take as long as you thought. I did this in another class. It took I think Ron was there. I think it took us a better part of an hour or so to figure it out, because I hadn't done it before. But it turns out most of this stuff is just grouped, all of these parts. So I didn't do each of the individual mates, I just grouped them. But how to decompose things and do stuff like that.
Makes sense.
Someday CAD will have a very nice interchange format that keeps the mates and the relationships between things, but it's not there by any stretch of the imagination yet. So we're step files, in case you didn't know, this step file has not been updated since 1992, might be 94. Anyway, it's a very, very old format. It predates most people by quite a ways, but it is the standard that we're all using. If you do get a chance to download stuff, and you can download it as a parasolid, it's a better format for Onshape. Onshape started out with the parasolid format, which is also the basis for for SolidWorks, and so it does a good job importing those. You still lose all the relationships, but you end up with fewer topology errors, at least so far. I could be wrong. Anyway, now I've held you 26 minutes late, and it's I have to go take the garbage out.
There you go. Thanks very much.
All right, dear friends. It was lovely talking to you all. See you in a week.
Thanks for the help.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Oh, I can stop the recording. There we go. Yay, team. Bye-bye. Thanks, Naomi, for stopping by. Appreciate it.